I want to break down the Baylor softball roster for the 2024 season, not just in terms of number of players, but how many in each position, and how many seniors, super seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, redshirt freshmen, you know. And as well as like the ceiling and the floor for this team. First of all, they have technically three catchers, and if you include like one catcher, that's an infielder as well. But the number of infielders is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which does not include one other player that could be an infielder as well, who is also a pitcher. So that's eight, technically eight, and all this. But outfielders, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, six outfielders, and there are like four, technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitchers on the team, which that's a lot of depth to have at that spot. And last year we had some injury bug issues there. I mean, Dariana Orm, Aaliyah Benford, just naming two examples right there. Yep, technically six pitchers, and there are three utility players, which those are any type of position they need to fill, they can. So that's really important. And granted, you could have a designated player in terms of the softball lineup, which that's as a bat only. So, and they returned a lot of production from last year. They only lost one senior. Now, I'm going to break down how many seniors do they have and all that. Well, first of all, they do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 seniors on the team. So how many juniors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 juniors. I want to double check that one more time. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. 10 juniors. How many sophomores? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 sophomores and just three freshmen. But like I said, they return a lot of production. And granted, I do not know the injury status for all these players going into this year, and hopefully the injury bug stays away. Because last year we had that issue, and that affected us in some games a year ago. And I really do believe if this team would not have some bad losses like in Iowa State like 3 times and in Kansas, just naming those examples, we would have been a host site last year for the NCAA tournament. Or win one Big 12 tournament game in Iowa State, and then maybe we would be a host site a year ago. Now, in terms of the Big 12, I believe the floor is like 4th or 5th, which I'm only saying that because UCF has been good in softball in the past, and their preseason pick number 5. So, you can't sleep on them by any means here. And in terms of like the ceiling for the team, I really do think in the Big 12 it's second. I'm not saying first because of Oklahoma's in the way. I really don't think it's realistic to think first in conference. Though this team was the only team a year ago that beat Oklahoma. And we have to go on the road now to Oklahoma for 3 games. So, and we don't play them in a non-conference this year, unlike last year or years in the past. But you get the whole point. In terms of this team's floor for the NCAA tournament, just be a regional team and not host it. Because I really do think this team should make the NCAA tournament, but if they don't, obviously something has gone really, really wrong. And a lot of injuries and a lot of bad losses. And I would be very stunned if they don't make it. They return too much. And production from a year ago to not make the NCAAs. They should be an NCAA tournament team, but not hosting. which you don't have to be a host to make the Super Regionals or even a World Series. When it's College World Series, like the 8 teams there, or making the championship series, because upsets do happen in NCAA tournament, as we all know. Not just in softball, but any sport in general. Upsets can happen. Of course, some other games that we shouldn't have lost, besides those Iowa State, we lost at Texas A&M. That was our first loss of the year, but they were a good team. Like, receiving votes. But we got revenge over them later on, a few days later. So, yeah, we don't need to lose to Boston University, Long Beach State, teams like that. In South Dakota State, that one game down here, but we got them the next game. But you get the whole picture. Avoid the bad losses. Last year, you would have been a host, top 16 seed for the NCAA tournament. Of course, we were really close with Oklahoma State a year ago. That first game, but then lost the last two games. They combined 10 runs to 1. So, yeah, and we lost to Kansas 2-1, but we got beat them 2 straight times. But you get the whole point in all this, and we barely lost to Texas Tech at Texas Tech 10-8 last year. So you get the whole point. Because look, we got to avoid those losses in order to be a top 16 seed, maybe even a top 8 seed as possible for this team. I really do think that's a possibility. Of course, it depends on what is going on around us nationally as well. Besides, take care of business against those unranked teams and getting some ranked wins along the way. Like in Oklahoma, if you could beat Oklahoma one time, that would be really good. In Oklahoma State, a Texas, and all those ranked teams on the schedule for this season. So I'm just telling you that up front right now. So in terms of the ceiling for I already said it for the Big 12. That's second in conference. That's more realistic than first. It's not that I don't believe they can win the conference. It's just going to be really, really hard with Oklahoma, and they're like a predominant power now in softball. And once Texas and Oklahoma leave the conference, I think it's a potential we could win the conference more. But I know Utah is good, and like last year they were good, and Arizona's been good in the past, and even Arizona State. So I'm just telling you. Now, in terms of the NCAA tournament, I really do believe that this team could very well go to the Women's College World Series. I'm not saying win it all. I wouldn't go that far. But to get to the championship series, that would be really, really good, of course. And I really do believe just getting to the World Series in general for the first time since 2017 would be a huge for this program going forward in terms of like recruiting and getting back there for the first time in a while. And this team could very well be a top 8 seed. But they should be a top 16 seed, and of course they should. That's really in general, like, they should be an NCAA tournament team in terms of like a regional, and whatever happens in regionals happens. But they could also go all the way to the Women's College World Series, which I'm not saying get to the win it all, because that's going to be really hard with Oklahoma in a way, and everything, and not to mention some other teams might be just a little bit better than us, but we'll have to wait and see. Anything could happen in the NCAA tournament. I mean, look, the 2 seed UCLA in softball last year lost the first 2 games in regionals. So that is a possibility. And of course, winning the conference tournament would really help, though it's going to be hard, and every team gets to play now for this year. I mean, so we'll have to wait and see what we do in terms of that, and we got to have a good enough resume anyway in order to be a top 16 seed, let alone a top 8. And if you're a top 8 seed, you could very well host the following week in super regionals if you could win your regional. So it's just in general, like I said before, the floor for the team is fourth or fifth in the Big 12 and just making the NCAA tournament as a regional team and not a host site. Or even if you're a host site, you could very well not make it to the super regional. I mean, that's the truth. But the ceiling is the top 8 seed, top 16 top 8 seed, and make it all the way to the Women's College World Series. They return a lot of production. They return a lot of experience. And hopefully the health of the players will be a lot better going into this next season. I mean, this upcoming year than last year. And I really do think if we would avoid some of those losses, and even an Ole Miss loss in the first game of the NCAA tournament last year, I think this team could have. I mean, I'm not sure about winning that regional by any stretch of the imagination against Ole Miss, but prior to that NCAA tournament, we could have been a host site last year, and I think this team could very well be that this year. It's a matter of can we get to the supers again for the first time in a while. I mean, I really do think this team is talented enough to get there. And maybe even beyond that, like a Women's College World Series. Not saying win it all, because that is unrealistic expectations. But just to get there again. And maybe if they go to the Women's College World Series Championship Series, that would be icing on the cake. And obviously, if you win it all, that's more icing on the cake. But I don't want to temper. I want to temper those expectations and just say, just get to the Women's College World Series. And whatever happens, happens. So, anyways, if you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button. See you guys later. On the road to 600 subscribers, gross ultimate goal. It's 1,000 more, so I mean, right now, just of course, liking the video, comment the video, really helps YouTube algorithm. So more people can see it. Sharing the video does help as well. So more people can watch. And if you're watching and not subscribed, hit subscribe button. It's free, the notification bell as well.